Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network's YouTube channel. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can find us on Facebook and stay up to date on our Facebook group, or find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for podcasts, hosts, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you might be on the spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's weekly podcast series, The Seance. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Meckes. If this is your first time tuning in, please click subscribe, like, share, comment, follow. And also, don't forget to follow wherever you listen to your podcasts. Monsters Among Us, a student of journalism and psychology at DePaul University. While there's no better teacher than life experience, She has had a long life experiences with narcissistic abuse. Through her studies, has given her the ability to accurately verbalize and express how narcissistic abuse creates confusion and conflict within her victims. Today, she is a proud voice for fellow victims who are unable, afraid, or ashamed to share their experiences. Her first book, chronicling her own abusive marriage that lasted nearly 3 decades, starting as a journal that she hid under the couch cushion in the basement. Let's welcome to the show for the first time, Dana S. Diaz. Welcome, Dana.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited about this.
You are very, very welcome and honored to have you with us, because this is information that is important. This helps prepare people, especially young people, getting ready to get out there in the world and getting into relationships. And for those who are older, that kind of like a wake up call. So do you want to share any of where, I wouldn't say how it started, we already know that, but let's go back in time and share something that people should know.
Well, sure. I'll give a little bit of background here. It started actually at birth. My book is about my former marriage, that 25-year-long relationship, but I have another book coming out later this summer that will discuss the big question, which is, how did somebody like you end up in a relationship like that? Like, how do people tolerate abuse? Well, I was a teenage pregnancy, wasn't exactly wanted, was treated as such. Then when my mother got married to a man that was not my biological father, I endured physical and verbal abuse as a child. I was diminished to nothing, told I would, never be part of their family. I was nothing. I was nobody. I shouldn't even exist, et cetera, et cetera. So obviously I went out into the world thinking nobody's ever going to treat me like that again. And what happened? Somebody treated me like that again. Because to me, I think a big part of this that people don't get is that we all come from different backgrounds, whether it's cultural, geographical, just home environment stuff. And when you have been through some of the stuff that I went through as a kid, you tolerate a little bit more. You're a little, you're built up a little bit more for the harder, rougher stuff of, adult life. Whereas somebody who grew up in a home where they were encouraged and loved and supported, like parents should treat their children, I would have probably had a boundary that got crossed real quick and said, no, thank you, sir. Best wishes. I'll be on my way now. So that did not happen. And for 25 years, I kept letting the boundaries get crossed. And they kept getting crossed more and more. And my boundaries, I felt like, were evading me. They were just getting so further away from me. until I physically became ill towards the end of that relationship. And that's what finally got me to, like you said, wake up. Because the thing about abuse, and I specifically, unfortunately, am an expert in narcissistic abuse, but taking the narcissism out of it, abuse is abuse. Intentional harm on another human being, I don't care what you call it, what label you want to put on it, it's wrong. But when you do that to somebody, that's where we get these ideas about monsters. Like, what kind of human beings are okay with that they can sleep at night and that they go out in the world and they do it to other people, and they're getting away with this because our criminal justice system does not recognize, anything except, if I had black eyes, he'd have probably been in jail. If he had shot me or stabbed me like he tried to, he would have probably been in jail, but he's not. Yet being with him and the chronic stress, we'll call it, of living in fight or flight mode and living in that constant, state of panic and anxiety and fear made me autoimmune. And I developed a lung disease that's like having COPD and fibromyalgia. Yet he walks free. He has never been jailed, even for those domestic violence incidents. And this is unfortunately the world we live in. And yes, too many women and men can get caught up in these types of relationships. They say 38% of girls between 18 and 25 are, involved in a relationship or experience their first round of abuse in a relationship at that age. But 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men are in some kind of a toxic relationship with, somebody that is intentionally harming them in some way.
Yeah. Wow. That is
Yeah.
amazing. See the numbers. Yeah. So what is a narcissist?
That's the question of the day. People spend decades studying this. My very simple explanation is just somebody who is intentionally harming you in order to fulfill their ego. Because there are different types of narcissists, and I want to be very clear about the type that I'm talking about because the term gets used so frequently and so loosely. A narcissist, really what a narcissist is, it came from the Greek god's name, Narcissus. He liked to look at his reflection in the water because apparently he was so good looking that he couldn't stop looking at himself. And we see these people on social media, they got the abs and the lashes and the hair and the and whatever, and the bodies. And you're like, wow, I wish I looked like that. And I can't even hate these people because they really do look as good as they think they do. I mean, if I was like Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie, I'd be probably taking that many selfies too. Like, I mean, it is what it is. But are they bothering you with it? No, it might annoy you, whatever, but it's not harmful to you. Now, on the very opposite end, what a narcissist has become to mean has nothing to do with physical or outward appearance or admiration of how one looks. It often comes from within. It's somebody who has been raised to either feel that they really actually are superior to everybody else and therefore they deserve entitlement and rules don't apply to them, these types of things, or they were unfortunately victims of abuse or neglect themselves, and they are now, basically perpetuating that generational trauma, so to speak, in their adult relationships. But for them, when they're intentionally, causing harm to others, like using power and, manipulation, control, all these other things, various abuses like sexual abuses, we see rape, financial abuse where, they have you, providing for them, let's say, or they're, preventing you from working so that you have no freedom to escape, or there's legal abuse where you have a baby with them and then they're constantly calling child services or threatening to call the cops on you because, if you do this or that, but it all comes down to manipulation and control. But if they're using any of these abuses, it fulfills their ego and their deep-seated insecurity that they actually don't even like themselves and don't feel very powerful at all. But doing these things to somebody else gives them that sense of it. So it's a really tricky thing to work with. But either way, I always tell people, don't get so caught up in the labels or the lingo. If it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't.
Yeah, yeah. When you're in any type of relationship, is we have to look at it in discernment. We can't allow our emotions to get involved with our emotions too quickly. When we do that, then we get it. Like they say, love is blind.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's happened to me several times, and it's like it had to get really bad. It had to really get bad in order for me to wake up. It's like, what?
Right. Yeah.
And yeah.
And that's everybody. I mean, you know, unfortunately, that's why I was going with before. Like when I got sick, that was my deal breaker. That was like when I said, that's it, I'm done. It should have been swinging a crowbar at my head. It should have been a prescription medication incident where he dragged me in the bathroom and left me hoping I would die. It should have been a million other things that happened, but it wasn't. And that's where we're all different in that way. Like people will say, oh, well, if my husband cheated on me, if my girlfriend, you know, drained my 100,000 out of their 401k and didn't even tell me until a year later when I had to pay taxes on it, you know, things like that, a normal person. But I endured it because apparently, even though I thought, oh yeah, if somebody cheats on me, well, I don't even know how many times he cheated on me. It got to the point where I was just glad I wasn't having to, you know, do that with him. But, you know, you really don't know until you're in that situation. You really don't know what it is that's going to be the thing. Just like an alcoholic, you can give them a million reasons to stop drinking, but you don't know what that thing is. You don't know what that thing is that's going to actually make them stop. And they probably don't even know either. Same thing in relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you mentioned before that, as far as somebody being raised in a family that could possibly lead somebody to become a narcissist, what is your thought? Do you think that this could also be genetic, or is it a variation between nature and nurture?
You know, there's a debate, but there's more evidence to prove that it's in the nurturing. And that's where I am. I mean, I hate to say, there was somebody on social media last year that said that she held her newborn baby at the hospital and knew right away it was a narcissist. And I'm like, but narcissism is diagnosed. I guess this is the best way to put it. It presents just like any other mental health or even, you know, physical health issue. It's how it's presented in where it's diagnosed. Not that a narcissist would ever go anywhere to get diagnosed, because nothing's ever wrong with them. They're perfect. They can't handle that kind of offense to their ego. But it's in the presentation of symptoms. Now, on that same note, there are people that say, oh my gosh, but I'm this way. Maybe I'm a narcissist. The thing is, you could have 10 out of 50 narcissistic tendencies. That doesn't make you a narcissist. We have to look at the intention. And that's why I always say intentional harm. That's the key to everything, whether it's narcissism, abuse, bullying, whatever. It's in the intentional harm that you want to see if this is true narcissism, because I just don't buy the genetic thing. There's a lot of things that can lie in genetics, but again, most of the evidence is lying in either they were raised to think they were much more superior. These are the golden children of the family, whereas the others are not narcissists because they were not raised to think that they were so great. You know, and those might be the kids who might end up being narcissists as well because they felt neglected in some way, or, you know, subdued in some way, that they were second rate. And so now they go out in the world trying to fulfill their egos with this sense of importance by harming somebody else, because there's a lot of power and ego fulfillment that comes from that, you know, comes from being able to conquer somebody, so to speak.
Yeah.
But like I said, even victims of abuse often, you know, have that tendency. There are kids, like even my son, raised with me and a narcissistic father with an alcohol problem. I cringed during his teenage years, hoping that he would not turn out. But Why would he? Because he is seeing as his male role model, his primary male role model, he is seeing the behaviors. So does that make you a narcissist? No. But if you enact those behaviors in order to intentionally harm somebody, then yes. But here's the key. And for people who are concerned about whether they're a narcissist, I always say, if you are worried that you are one, you're not one, I promise you, because a narcissist is never going to say yes to that.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't even entertain it. Their answer would actually be, no, you're the narcissist. And Lord knows I've been called one a million times over. So, and that's fine, whatever.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned there are different types of narcissists.
Yes.
Can you touch a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's how they present their narcissism, how they fulfill that ego. The two that are the main ones, and the two that I have had the most unfortunate experience with, are the overt and the covert narcissists. Overt narcissists are your, I hate to say plain old narcissists. They would be offended by that. But these are the people that actually will tell you how great they are. And look at my new car that costs this much money. You'll never be able to have one like that. Oh, and I know everything, by the way, even though I've never finished school past high school. And, they have the big house and they're wearing the Rolex and they flash everything, and they're going to tell you. They're very showy. They brag about everything. My kid this and my kid that. This is your typical narcissist. That's one that I was raised by. That's my stepfather. But they will also put you down just as easily. If they feel threatened by something, then they will make sure that you know that you're lower than them, that they will not accept, they will not share the spotlight, they will not share success. They don't even like sharing joy. So they're not going to let you succeed or acknowledge you in any way. The other type is the covert narcissist. This was my ex-husband. This one is a tricky one. And I think this is why so many people don't understand, like, well, if you were raised by this, how could you not see it when you got involved with your ex? Because it came to me in a different type. I always said my ex reminded me of Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, like the slumped shoulders and the drooped head, like, poor me, nothing good ever happens. This is your humble person. They're the forever victim and nothing good ever happens. So you're pumping them up and you're saying, oh no, you really do look good. Or no, look at how much you've accomplished. And, you're trying to get them to see how great everything is and how wonderful they are. And look at what you did there. You were so generous. You were so charitable. They want that. It's almost like they bait you into giving them the admiration and the praise they want. Versus that overt one is just going to be like, look at me, bow down, because I'm it. The covert one is saying, oh, I'm nothing and nobody and I'm ugly and I don't know anything and I'm stupid. And, and you're like, no, you're not. No, you're not. And it doesn't sound like it can be a mean, nasty thing, but behind closed doors, you look at them the wrong way, you say the wrong thing, you don't, compliment them enough, you don't do what they want you to do. It gets ugly.
They'll snap.
Yes. Pretty much. I mean, it's like living with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because whether it was in my childhood with my stepfather or in my previous marriage with my ex, I can't stand here and say there weren't good times. There were times we could get along and where things, it's not like I was like married or raised by Chucky that was running around after me with a butcher knife all the time. It's not that way. Look at Ted Bundy, the serial killer, charming and handsome, right? Funny and, business person, had a little girl at home that absolutely adored him. So, we have to be aware that these people are, they're hiding, like we said, monsters among us. They are hiding everywhere you go. Ever since my son was little, I have told him, you just have to be careful, because whether you're at the gas station or at the bank or the Walmart or wherever you go in your life, even at church, even at, at work, they're everywhere. My ex, he, by the end of our relationship, there were guns and knives involved. And I have written threats that he wanted me dead, written from him. Yet he has never served 1 hour behind bars. He has never been arrested for any of it. I had to go to court 3 times to get an order of protection. So think about that the next, I'm not trying to scare everybody, but think about that the next time you are out. And remember that 1 in 4 women is in a relationship with one of these people. Or I'm sorry, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men are in a relationship with somebody like this. So when you're at the gas station and there's 5, 6 other cars filling up around you, odds are at least one of those people has done something really awful to their partner, or maybe, like in my case, to their daughter, to somebody. But you have to remember, they don't do it to everybody. In my childhood, it was just done to me. My brother was that golden child. He thinks he has the best parents that ever could be.
Huh.
In my case, I had child services involved. The police were involved. There were many instances of other people having to get involved because it was just me. So we have to remember that.
Wow. Oof. And that segues into, I think you pretty much answered the question, is what makes narcissist monsters. It's like, what their abilities. We don't know how far, whether we're doing something right or wrong. We'll never know. But that moment they snap,
hard.
it's like, whoa.
Well, and that's the thing. And like early in I remember, like I wrote about in my book, the first time something happened, it was only 3 weeks into dating. 3 weeks. Usually at that point, you're still putting your best foot forward.
Yeah.
I bought a CD. That was back in the 90s, people, when we had these round things that played music, for anybody that's not as old as me. Compact disc. I bought a compact disc. Gwen Stefani, it was her new one. I was so excited. Well, he had apparently bought the same one. And so when I brought it and showed him, oh, look, I got the new CD, he flipped out. It's a CD. It's music. It was a $15. I had the receipt. He tore the packaging off. I mean, like a maniac, like a savage, whipped it across the room at my head, started punching holes in wall. It was such an overreaction to a damn music CD. But here's my point. What did I do? I immediately was like, no, thank you. I'm out. I left. But what happens after that? I'm sorry. I had a bad day. It won't happen again. And then he's caressing my cheek and telling me, oh, it's you and me against the world. I'm a reasonable person, or at least I try to be. We all have bad days, right? We have moods. There are times when I'm even acting like a child, and, I'm just like, okay, I hope nobody ever witnesses this except my husband, I'm having a day. I'm having a moment. We all have those. So I can understand that. So I thought, okay, who knows what happened that day? A CD set him off. Well, the problem is with a narcissist, it's never that thing. It's never a bad day. It's an ongoing thing. But they know they got away with that. So the next time something happens, it's worse. Then they get away with that because they come back with the excuses and the apologies. And you think, oh, okay, that's reasonable. Then it's something else. But then it almost got to the point where, I hate to say, but in this 25-year relationship, let's say, for example, like when one of his grandparents passed, it's a terrible thing because I loved his grandparents dearly. But one of the first things in my mind, other than that really sucks and I'm going to miss them, was, oh, great. What's he going to do now? And use that as an excuse, because whatever they can use as a reason for behaving in ways that otherwise wouldn't be accepted. And they don't like you to have happiness on holidays and birthdays. And, they have to be the center of your focus, center of attention. And it's exhausting for somebody, especially when you have all these things happening and they have so much that they're doing around you behind your back that you don't even know about. You don't know that they're already telling their family and your friends and your neighbors and the people at your church and at your kids' school and everywhere that you're crazy and you're an unfit mother and you're harassing them and you're abusing them and, creating this idea. And you start to see shifts in people around you. Like, you feel like you're like in Bizarro world, like some alternate universe. And it's weird. It's a weird thing, but that's part of how they try to isolate you and be the only influence on you. They want you dependent on them for everything. They can't risk you being around other people and having those relationships where you might confide to somebody what's really going on, or have somebody possibly say, doesn't sound like a healthy relationship, maybe you should get out. But the strange thing, no matter what type of narcissist it is and what they're doing to you, what we have found, and I'm talking all over the world. I mean, I have spoken at length on podcasts and social media and whatever, in the UK, England, I mean, all over the world. They all use the same language. They have the same tendencies. They use even the same verbiage. They love the crazy thing. If you're with a narcissist, believe me, you'll get called crazy, and we all joke we have a certain name, some vulgar, awful name that they constantly call us, that you start thinking it's your name because it's just so common and it's not respectful, and we won't go there, but it's just really strange, to the point where there are people that actually believe that it's not something that's a nature versus nurture, that these are actually aliens and they're downloaded with the software to corrupt humans. And there's the other end of, especially biblical people. Boy, they like to talk about how these are the demons and they're taking over their bodies and they're taking, testing us and our strength and our will and beliefs and everything else. I don't know about any of that. My thing is, whatever it is, if it's hurting you, if it's harming your mental health, your physical health, and it's just exhausting you, it's, again, I would steer clear of it.
Yeah. I and that just brought to my attention too. I just had this thought, which I'll express. A narcissist, you get out of a relationship and you just, you're hoping that they get dealt their own poison, meaning that they find another narcissist, and then now they're battling it in the ring. They get to face their own poison.
It's interesting you say that, because I have had those thoughts too, because I noticed my stepfather, the king of all narcissists, and my ex, that covert, poor me narcissist, boy, they did not like each other. Even before they met, there was, it's funny, and I didn't even discuss this in my book, but I always felt like there was this war between them. Yeah. Like, for my, I hate to say loyalty, for lack of better words, or, they each wanted that control over me. And I don't know why either one of them thought they could get it, but it was very interesting to watch that play out. Yet, when I was done with my ex and I have no contact with my stepfather or my mother, it's funny how then suddenly they unite. People that couldn't stand each other in the past and they were each trying to get me away from the other one. Yet now that I'm out of the picture, they have united against me. It's funny. It's like two negatives make a positive, but I am curious about two narcissists in a relationship, because I think that in writing my book about my childhood, I realized how narcissistic my mother actually was, whereas I never saw her in my perspective as being a narcissist. But now that it's kind of like out of my head and I'm reading the words objectively of these things that happened and things she said, I'm like, wow, she wasn't overt like her husband. She's more of that covert, where she comes off nice. And, these people that like they're smiling at your face, but they're saying the nastiest, snidest thing,
Yeah.
just like taking you down and diminishing you, or just completely looking the other way, like something is going on. They just saw something that violates like any rule of how you treat a person, but they look the other way and, oh, look outside. There's rain coming down. Like they want to live in this bubble that's my mother,
Yeah.
and just trying to get me to submit and not wanting any part of me because I wouldn't, if that makes sense. It was very weird, but I think it could work. I mean, if they both think that they're great and the other one's great too, then I don't see how it could go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll put all the put all the narcissists on an island and just let them hash it out amongst themselves. That way, all the good people can just survive together.
There aren't that many islands. You know what the irony is that like my mother is still I mean, they've been married 41 years, I want to say 40 years, something like that. She chooses it. She wants it because she truly believes that she wouldn't have the big fancy house and the car and the clothes and all the things unless she was with him. So some people actually do choose it, and that's their option. And even my ex is in another relationship now. I was just basically saying, some people actually choose to be with a narcissist for whatever reason. Like my mother, she honestly thinks that she can't have the big fancy house and the nice car and, the life. And apparently that's more important to her than, things that might be more important to me. I'd rather have, my ride or die best friend rest of my life and live in a tent on somebody's lawn than have all the stuff. But, to each his own. And that's what makes the world go round. So no judgment, but, they find love, and even my ex has found somebody, and they're living together, and she's got her 2 teenage daughters there. And I mean, I worry and I pray on that, but it's also out of my hands because as adults, if you're able to make adult decisions for yourself, then, you have to suffer the consequences, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, your book that I see on your website, Gasping for Air,
Yes.
The Stranglehold of Narcissistic Abuse. Is that that's the one that's your
That
first
is
one?
the one. Yes, that is the first one. It was the only one that was ever meant to be, but it has gained so much popularity because unfortunately so many people can relate. So it's kind of bittersweet. I mean, of course, you write a book thinking, my thing was just if one person reads the book and finds strength to leave a toxic relationship or an abusive relationship, I'm good. My work is done.
Mm-hmm.
I have had so many though. But what makes me sad, like I want to be happy that I've sold many more books than I ever expected to, but I'm sad that so many people can relate to it. Because that shouldn't be the case. It should be the other way around. I wish I only sold 2 books and those 2 women left their relationships and the world went on and everything was good. But, it's much more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell people how they can find you, how they can reach out to you.
Yes,
Contact you.
absolutely. My website has been going across the bottom there, danasdiaz.com. So thank you for that. That's probably the best way. Go there. Link for the book is there, or you can go directly to Amazon or wherever you buy books online. The ebook is available on Amazon, and print book you can get anywhere. Links to Facebook and Instagram are also on the website. I have a blog. This podcast will be on there. And yeah, just any way you want to reach out. I do actually respond to people myself, whether you email or contact me through social media. I do like to hear from people, comments, thoughts, questions. I'm not a therapist or lawyer or a financial advisor, but I can certainly provide resources or just be your cheerleader and encourage you in whatever way you need.
Yeah. And like you have titled on your website, you are the voice for victims that are out there of narcissistic abuse.
Yes.
Especially for those who need a voice.
Well, that's the thing. I was silenced for so long. And even in my childhood, I was told, you better not say, you better not tell. And I'm just at the point where I have nothing to lose. And it's a very dangerous thing when you have nothing to lose, because
Yeah.
it's not that I don't care. I'm not trying to hurt anybody, but I think that it's very important for people who are in those situations to know that they're not alone. Somebody gets it. And let me tell you, there's a lot of us. There are a lot of us out there, and we stick together and we hold each other up and get each other through.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, it seems like that's how the Lifetime movie channel gets their ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the language that was thrown around in my house, though, and some of the content is a little beyond Lifetime. Somebody did bring up Netflix once. I'm like, yeah, I think there's already a few movies about narcissists out there, but everybody's got some kind of a story. And I've heard some that are so much more horrific than anything I could ever have thought to have gone through. But, the important thing is just that we get it out there and we recognize it, and maybe then our justice system will follow, so that these people aren't walking around and aren't going to hurt somebody else. Because I'm tired of watching 48 hours, and my husband likes to watch it at night, and every time I'm like, dare I say, it was a narcissist. The murderer is always a narcissist. And 20% of our male prison population are identified as narcissists. So I mean, these are dangerous people.
Yeah. Wow.
I know, it's a lot.
So before we close the show, what would you like to give as a takeaway for our audience today?
Takeaway, I think, is just something I mentioned earlier, but I feel very strongly about it, is if something doesn't resonate with you about somebody, you don't have to have a reason. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to have proof. You're not a judge or a journalist. If it doesn't feel right, move on. Doesn't mean you have to cut ties. You don't have to have conflict. But, I always tell people, there's always somebody that you meet in life that you just click with from the get-go. You click with them. They're our best friend. They might be a family member. Why don't we apply that to romantic relationships? We're always trying to force that puzzle piece into a place it doesn't fit. So if it doesn't click, if it doesn't settle right, if your gut is saying, I don't know if I can trust him, I'm not sure about this, just call it a day. Just be done with it. You can always revisit it, and you know what? And you can be wrong. It's okay to be wrong, and it's okay to make mistakes, but listen to your gut. It's trying to tell you something.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to do more of that. A lot more of that.
Yes.
Dana, blessings, my friend. You are doing awesome work.
Thank you so much.
And a blessing to everybody out there that might be going through these relationships. And you are truly a voice to help those that may feel like they're stuck and want somebody to reach out to and say, hey, give me some resources. I need some resources.
Yeah, even if you just need somebody to say, I've been there and you'll be okay. Because really, you can be okay. You'll know when it's time and you'll move on.
Yeah. Or buy your book and hide the title.
Or buy the book or get the ebook. It's much cheaper, and you can hide it on your computer or your laptop or your phone or whatever. It's much easier.
Yeah. Dana, once again, thank you very, very, very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Blessings back.
Very welcome. Thank you, everybody, for watching Conscious Radio Network's The Seance. We will see you next week.